All right. Sorry about the lighting here, guys. It's nighttime making this video. But I was just doing some reading before bed, and it just got me thinking about like all the reading I've done over the years, how I've come to read the things I've been reading, and how I've come to kind of be able to pull things out of that reading and interpret it correctly. And I do want to emphasize that correctly, because a lot of people nowadays will say things, especially when it comes to reading, like, "Oh, there's no right or wrong way to interpret this, right? You can just interpret it the way you feel about interpreting, blah blah blah, right? No objective truth to be sought." There's a lot of talk about my truth or something like that nowadays. But this video is going to kind of be about critical thinking, how to do it, how I've learned to do it. So I hope it's helpful for you guys. This isn't supposed to be like a self-help video, but it's just something that I was thinking about. It took me years to grasp this, so that's another thing. And with the internet now, you have all the tools at your disposal to be able to think critically if you understand what is going on, essentially. If you guys ever watched Gonzalo Lira, Coach Red Pill, he used to always say that, one of my favorite lines of any YouTuber. God rest his soul, because he's now passed on, for those that know. But he used to say, "Understand what is going on," at the end of almost every video. And it was pivotal. I started watching him in like 2020, and he used to always say that, and it really helped me during that time of the pandemic when everyone was going crazy and you didn't know what was true. Like I pretty much sussed a lot of it out, but you still tend to go a little bit crazy, especially when you're talking to like normies. Like I don't mean to use that term necessarily in like a derogatory sense, but a normie is just someone that doesn't know what's going on, and you can't expect everyone to know what's going on. So that's why I don't mean it derogatory. But when you're talking to normies, a lot of them don't know how to think critically, and they they contradict themselves. They commit all sorts of fallacies, like logical fallacies, and so yeah. The book that I was reading tonight, it is as you guys know, I was raised LDS, but I've discussed it in other videos. That's why I'm saying, as you guys know, but I was raised LDS Mormon, but I've been on a kind of a different path. It's leading me towards the Orthodox Church, but I've been reading a lot of just religious literature in general from all sorts of sects of Christianity. Even like the ones I probably won't read is like Hindu. I tried to read a book called Awakening by this Indian guy. I read a book called The Way of the Superior Man by some Jewish guy. But those kinds of like spiritual books, they don't do it for me. So I'm probably not going to be reading a whole bunch of those, but I think I am going to read a lot about just the various sects of Christianity, because I want to understand it, even though I disagree with like 90% of Christianity. One of the reasons why I'm heading the Orthodox Church way is because I believe that is the true church, the truest in a sense. Maybe I'll make a video about that later, but it is what it is. But I'm reading a book by, his name is Edgar Lyon. It's called Apostasy to Restoration. It is a Mormon book. So if you guys don't know about what the Mormons believe, very different than the Orthodox and the Catholic view. They believe that the church, after the 12 apostles, fell into complete apostasy and was not restored until the 1800s when Joseph Smith, I'm trying not to like mock it, but to me, it's a very convenient way to form a religion. We'll just leave it at that. But I'm reading this book because it details the origins of the church, right? So like the Orthodox era. And there's actually a lot of things in here that I like, to read. I'm not going to like go into the book. I'm using this more as an illustrative example of you can read sources. I don't know. I can't remember what the term is. These would be like secondary sources, I believe, in academia. The primary source is like where the idea comes from. So the primary source in Christianity would obviously be like the Bible, and then everything else is like a secondary source. I could be getting that wrong though. So if I am getting that wrong, anyone else correct me in the comments. But essentially what I'm getting at is you can read a lot of secondary sources to things, and if you already know the primary source, then when you read the secondary source, you can actually read through the sophistry. And sophistry is kind of like, it's appealing to their side, right? So like, because when I read a Mormon book like this, it's going to be talking about like the Mormons, like a lot of things they'll do, instead of saying the Holy Spirit, they'll say like the Holy Ghost, because that's like a very Mormon thing, things like that. And then they'll always like cite you to Mormon authors, other Mormons, to further their position. That's what this is. But what you can do though, if you know the primary source, is you can read this stuff, you can get the good out of it, because there's grains of truth in everything, to be honest. Like, you can read Marxist literature and find grains of truth. Like, I've read the Communist Manifesto, and not everything Karl Marx says in that book is complete falsehood. It's like, even like people that are really stupid, there's that term called broken clock, where, a broken clock is right twice a day. So there's grains of truth in everything. You just have to be able to suss it out. And another reason that it's interesting to read this stuff, if you think critically, is because a practice that I've liked to do as of late is that if I'm going to be learning about something that I may or may not disagree with, especially if I know I'm not going to disagree with it, or if I'm going to disagree with it, is that I try to steel man the position. And that's the opposite of straw man. So straw manning is, you just try to find any weakness you can and mock it, essentially. But steel man is the opposite. I don't do this really like with trolling, like steel manning is more for discussions or debates, right? Like if you have, like a lot of because I was raised Mormon, right? A lot of my family and my friends are of the faith. And so when I talk to them about their religion, I don't want to just outright insult them. So I try to steel man the position. But you don't have to do that like with everyone. Like if you're talking to some like shit lib on Facebook and he's being insulting, right? You don't need to like steel man his position. That's not. I'm just talking about like when you're doing research into a subject, even if you don't agree with it. And a lot of people lack this skill. It's one of the things I've noticed. It's very concerning to modernity, is that a lot of people don't know how to read something without getting like emotional. Like it's like the joke among women, right? That like whenever you bring up a topic to a woman, she'll always somehow make it about herself, right? Like they don't understand. Like it's like something with the female brain. Like most women don't understand how to. Well, they're normies, right? Because women can critically think too, but their like baseline is that they're emotional. So you'll say something to them like, black people commit this much crime, and then a woman will say, well, I know I have a black friend and he doesn't commit crime, right? Or you could say something like 61% of, I can't remember what it is, like over 60% of student loan debt is held by women, and then you'll get a woman obviously, well, I never went to school and I don't hold debt. That's what I mean. So there's like a fundamental disconnect there, to where they can't take themselves out of it. And this isn't really just women, it's just women tend to do this more than men by far. But it is really a symptom of modernity, because this is what modernity's taught us. Is modernity has taught us not to think. It's taught us what to think, not to think. So like, here's your propaganda, eat your Cheerios and go to work every day and don't think. That's like what it. So it's not surprising that people don't know how to think critically. But it is also very concerning, which is why I'm making this video right now. By the way, we're 10 minutes in. I always forget to do this. My name is Joey. This is Jigsaw channel, Jigsaw0097 channel. It's my old channel that I'm repurposing into this. Please like and subscribe if you are enjoying this content that I've been putting out. Share the videos, and please comment. I'm actually looking for comments more than anything. But really, I want people to watch, but I would like people to comment. But yeah, to get back onto the critical thinking thought line is that where I was going with all of that is that you'll be above. I mean, I'm trying to think of a way to put this. You will have an advantage in life, but it's also like the more you read, the more you want to die. I say that sounds really funny to say, but the more you read and the more you learn is the more you realize how much people don't know what they're talking about. So like you'll be talking to someone. This happens to me all the time now. I'm not trying to be arrogant either, because like all of this just comes through reading. Like I have no superpower. I just made a decision 5 years ago to start reading more books, and I did that for literally 5 years. And so anyone can do this. It's not like it's like a humble brag basically, but most people don't do this. That's the point. They read, but they read like news, like CNN articles, and that stuff is there will come a point in the channel when I can figure OBS out that we'll go over articles, but just not to that point yet. I don't have a webcam. I'm looking into that, but once I get OBS set up, figure out how to use that, then maybe I'll show you guys just some of the slop. It's just absolute slop out there that I know people are reading. That's the thing. I read it and I'm like, people are reading this and they're actually like taking it to heart, so yeah, you'll just be talking about a subject, and like you can pick like any subject, like finance, for example. Like I just talked to a guy about finance, and he was talking about how like the Fed is the source of like all evil in finance, right? So why is that a problematic statement? Well, one, you're not looking at I was asking him, like, he was like a libertarian mindset. I was asking him like, well, like what created the Fed? Like where did it come from? What is the idea here? Like he didn't even know what usury was. I used the word usury and he didn't know what that meant. So it's like, you don't like the Fed, but you don't know why you like the Fed. And then as I asked him questions, he basically came out and said, oh yeah, I'm a big Ron Paul fan, right? So it's like immediately I was like, okay, so you just heard Ron Paul say this and you parroted it. So end the Fed, right? That was the Ron Paul thing. It's much more complicated than that, right? You have to know about the Bank of England. You have to know about the euro dollar. You have to know about the Jews. I mean, there's so much that goes into finance. It's not just the Fed. And that's what I mean. Most people have fragmented knowledge, and you can go full autism mode like I have if you read enough, because you'll hear people say things as if they know what they're talking about. And I'm not saying everybody has to be an expert. I think the whole expert thing is cringe. Really what I'm more advocating for now is to be an autodidact. Which that means self-taught. So you just try to teach yourself these things, right? Like something I'm trying to do right now, just as an example, as like a possible career move, is I'm trying to learn bookkeeping. Now I would like to get a job in the field, but I have not been getting any responses back because the job market is really bad right now. Like it's I'm having a very hard time finding a job, period, right now. But one of the things I'm doing in the meantime is I'm like, okay, let's study bookkeeping. So I'm just reading books, reading like tax code, things like that. That's an example of an autodidact. Like I'm not going to school for this. I'm not doing anything. I'm just learning the material, which will probably be, it'll be less and less of a stigma going forward to do it that way, by the way, as the college system continues to collapse around itself. I think being an autodidact, having physical copies of books, things like this will be actually become more valuable. So it's a good skill in general to have. And so, yeah, that's part of critical thinking as well, is that tie back into college. And like part of critical thinking is to analyze college and say, do I actually need to go to college, or do I just want to go to college? Or, where did the idea, that's what I should be getting at. Where did the idea to go to college come from to begin with, right? This is how you get to the truth. This is just basic Socratic method. It's kind of embarrassing that I even have to say that. And again, I'm not bragging. 5 years ago, I didn't understand the Socratic method because you have to practice this. It's like a muscle. But the Socratic method is just to keep asking questions. And it's amazing how fast you can crumble most people's beliefs. I say that with air quotes because I don't think most people actually believe what they say. But it's amazing how quickly you can just crush a belief just by asking questions. Like, you don't even have to insult them, or you just ask them like a question of like why they believe it. And you just continue asking questions, and they always get to a point where they just can't answer. And that happens to me too, but I'll just say like, oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to look into that. But what a lot of people tend to do is they Mott and Bailey, which is kind of like you come out and you say a bunch of things, and then when you get called on it, you retreat back to your little castle fort. So it's a thing that happens for sure. It's a thing that I see a lot of, and I don't know. The way to get around it is to kind of wrap this video up, is that when you're reading anything, right, like again, I'll use the book written by T. Edgar Lyon. You go and you literally research T. Edgar Lyon. Like, you actually go read about him. There's usually a Wikipedia page now for almost any person out there. And, I know that Wikipedia is not the most reliable source, but the early life meme is there for a reason, guys. I'll just leave it at that if you know what I'm talking about. There's a reason why the early life section is becoming a meme, because you can learn a lot about people just by reading about their early life, because based on how they were raised, what their race is, what their culture is, their history, literally, that will give you an idea of what their presuppositions are. And once you know what their presuppositions are, and then you read their works, you can understand, you can read through it, right? You can understand why they're writing the way they write, how they're coming to their conclusions. It's further than that as well. You also have to kind of have like an understanding of philosophies and where they come from, because that's another thing that a lot of writers do, is they just borrow from who they like. Like me, I'm very Christian, but I also kind of have like a Nietzschean perspective. I've read a lot of Oswald Spengler, right here actually. This comes in 2 volumes, but if you guys can ever read this, good one to read. The Decline of the West, Oswald Spengler. Spenglerian view is what you'd call it. You read Aristotle, you read Plato. You just learn what the philosophers believe, and that alone can also help you critically think, because then you can work out like where they're coming from. And speaking of Mormonism too, a lot of Mormonism comes from the Enlightenment, essentially, which is classically liberal. So there's a presupposition for it right there. Go into churches and think about like, why do they teach the way they teach compared to like something like Orthodox Christianity? Well, it's because of the Enlightenment, right? Like, the word Protestant literally means protest. So the Catholic Church breaks off from, there's the schism, and then you have the Protestants after. But everything, like the Protestant itself as like an entirety, is in protest to Roman Catholicism. So there's your presupposition right there. Your presupposition is that they're in protest, they're in rebellion. As another really awesome book series is The Jewish Revolutionary Spirit by E. Michael Jones, which I agree quite heartedly with. where this kind of thinking comes from, this revolutionary idea. Really, it comes from Satan. Let's just be honest. From my totally biased Christian view, that's where it comes from. But it, if you're more of like a race realist, you could say it comes from somewhere else. And again, I can't really talk about it completely. Our greatest ally, right? I don't know how to because of YouTube. I gotta kind of tiptoe around these things. But anyway, that's kind of the video, guys. I just wanted to make this. I guess it's not a quick one. It's a 20-minute video again, but this video will probably be titled something to do with critical thinking. Just as I continue to make videos daily and try to regrow the channel, revive the channel in different directions. So that's kind of all I have to say. If you guys like this, like I said it before, like the video, comment down below, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, talk to you guys later.